In 2019, a 34-year-old accountant, someone whose actual job was tracking other people's money for a living, burned through $31,000 in 18 months. No addiction, no divorce, no emergency. Just a series of decisions that made complete sense at the time and absolutely zero sense in hindsight. That person wasn't some cautionary tale off the internet. That was my cousin. And what his net worth looks like 5 years later is the part of this story that never makes it into a YouTube video. $340,000, not despite that $31,000 loss, partially because of it. And before you write this off as some feel-good story about bouncing back, slow down. This is about something far more specific. There's a mechanism buried inside financial failure that most people never activate because they spend too much time being ashamed of the loss to actually study it. Once you understand how this mechanism works, your worst financial moments stop being wounds and start becoming the most expensive education you'll ever put to use. The real problem. Here's what actually happens when most people hit a financial wall. They feel the impact. They pull back. They cut spending for a few weeks, maybe a month. There might even be a spreadsheet, a budget, a strongly worded promise to themselves. Then, quietly, gradually, they drift back to nearly the same patterns that caused the problem in the first place. Not because they're reckless, not because they don't care, because nobody showed them what to actually do with the failure once it happened. The emotional response gets managed. The root cause doesn't. Psychologists have a name for why this is hard to fix. It's called the hot stove effect. Touch a hot stove, you never touch it again. The correction is instant and impossible to ignore. But financial pain doesn't work like that. You don't lose $31,000 in 1 second. You lose it across 100 small decisions that each felt reasonable in isolation. The lesson never lands clean. There's no sharp, single moment of correction, which means you have to force the lesson out deliberately, and most people skip that step entirely. Reframe 1. Your failure is a financial fingerprint. Every money mistake you've ever made is a fingerprint, not of your character, but of your actual money psychology, not the version you believe about yourself, the real one, the one that shows up under pressure. When my cousin went back through those 18 months, he didn't just figure out where the money went. He found out 3 things about himself he genuinely did not know before. First, he made financial decisions at emotional peaks. When things were trending up, when he felt confident and successful, he spent. He upgraded. He committed. His spending didn't track his income. It tracked his mood like a shadow. Second, he had a phantom income problem. His financial decisions were calculated against money he expected to have, not money he actually held. Projected bonuses, assumed raises. The $31,000 loss wasn't reckless. It would have been completely fine if the income he anticipated had arrived on the timeline he expected. Third, he had zero friction between the impulse to spend and the actual transaction. Everything was frictionless. 1 click. Card on file. Auto pay. He wasn't actively choosing to spend. He was just not actively choosing to stop. None of this was visible before the failure. He genuinely couldn't have told you any of this in 2018. The loss surfaced it. So here's the question most people never ask themselves. What does your failure tell you specifically about you? Not about your income or your circumstances or your timing. About how you, specifically, process money when nobody is holding you accountable. Write that down. That answer alone is worth more than any budgeting app you'll ever download. Because apps track your spending. They can't tell you why you make the choices you make when your emotions are running the show, and your rational mind has quietly stepped out of the room. Reframe 2. The real cost isn't what you think. Here's where most people get the math completely backwards. Say a financial mistake cost you $8,000. That's real. That hurts. But now, ask yourself, what would it cost you to repeat the same mistake in 7 years, when you have significantly more at stake? What would a similar mistake, same root cause, different circumstances, cost you 2 or 3 more times across your lifetime? The actual cost of a financial failure is almost never the initial loss. The actual cost is repeating it. An $8,000 loss that teaches you something concrete is an $8,000 tuition payment on a lesson that could protect 6 figures down the line. The same $8,000 loss that you bury emotionally and never examine? That's just a loss, and it's a preview of the next one. My cousin didn't recover by forgetting the $31,000. He recovered by treating it like a case study. He literally created a document, titled it What Happened, and went through every major financial decision from those 18 months, one by one. What was he thinking? What did he actually know? What was he choosing to minimize? He found 4 recurring patterns, fixed 3 of them permanently. That one Saturday afternoon he spent writing that document has very likely saved him over $200,000 in future mistakes. The ROI on that afternoon is almost absurd to calculate. Reframe. 3. Your real risk tolerance is finally visible. Here's something the financial world avoids saying clearly. Most people don't actually know their risk tolerance until they've lost something real. Every brokerage questionnaire on the planet asks how you'd feel if your portfolio dropped 30%. You fill it out on a calm Tuesday when markets are steady, and you say, honestly, sincerely, that you'd hold, stay calm, maybe even buy more. Then the drop actually comes, and you find out exactly who you are. Same principle with debt, same with business risk. Same with any financial bet that has real downside attached to it. You don't know how you handle loss until you've actually sat inside a real loss and made decisions from that place. The person who has been through it, who looked at the number, made the hard calls, and rebuilt, now has accurate information about themselves that no questionnaire can replicate. That accuracy is a serious competitive edge. Because the next time an opportunity comes along that requires genuine risk tolerance, they're not guessing how they'll respond. They already know. That means they can size their positions correctly, build appropriate buffers, and make decisions built on reality instead of optimistic self-assessment. Processed failure doesn't just teach you about the mistake you already made. It calibrates you for every high-stakes decision still ahead. The actual move. Pull up the worst financial decision you've made in the last 5 years. Not to punish yourself, to study it. Write out the answers to 3 questions. What did I actually know when I made this decision? What did I choose to minimize or ignore? And what was I feeling in the 2 or 3 weeks before I made it? Those 3 answers will tell you something that no budget, no financial plan, and no content creator can tell you. They'll reveal specifically where your thinking breaks down under pressure, the exact conditions under which your brain stops making financial decisions and starts making emotional ones. That's the gap that keeps costing you, quietly, consistently, repeatedly, until you find it and close it. This is not about discipline. Discipline is a result, not a starting point. The starting point is self-knowledge. Accurate, specific, hard-won self-knowledge. And the fastest way to earn it isn't reading books or watching videos. It's sitting down with your most expensive mistake and refusing to look away until it gives you something useful. Wealthy people are not people who never failed. They're people who became extremely efficient at extracting more value from failure than the failure took from them. That's the actual move. That's the whole game. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop in the comments the financial mistake that ended up teaching you the most. Not the biggest loss, the most useful lesson. 1 sentence is enough, though some of you are going to write paragraphs, and I'm here for it. I read every comment on this channel, and that comment section is going to be worth reading today. If this hit differently than the financial content you're used to, subscribe to Rickard Invests. We don't do surface level here. Every video is built to change how you think about money, not just hand you a tip and send you on your way. And before you leave, watch the previous video on this channel. Everything we talked about today builds directly on what's in that one. Go watch it now. The connection between the two will make both of them hit harder. See you there.